They say you never really know a person, not until they've shattered you. I used to think I was one of the lucky ones. I married my best friend, the man who brought me tea when I was sick, who held my hand during labor, who kissed my forehead every night without fail. Mark was the kind of husband women joked about cloning. Smart, affectionate, charming, and utterly devoted, or so I thought. We had a rhythm. 2 kids, 1 mortgage, a golden retriever named Max. Our life looked like a well-filtered Instagram post. Happy, comfortable, ideal. He worked in marketing. I ran a home baking business that paid for vacations and violin lessons. We had family dinners, Saturday hikes, movie nights. Everyone saw us and saw perfection. I saw it too, until I started noticing the cracks. It was small at first. Mark got a gym membership. I cheered him on after all. Who doesn't want a healthier partner? But it wasn't just the gym. He became obsessive. Protein shakes. New cologne. Spending more time in front of the mirror than I ever did. I thought it was a phase. Then came the phone. He used to leave it lying around like an afterthought. Now it never left his pocket. The screen was always dimmed. I caught him turning away when messages popped up, thumb quickly sliding them off screen. I convinced myself I was imagining things. After all, Mark wasn't like that. Around that time, Jade came back into the picture. My best friend since high school, freshly divorced and vulnerable. She spent long evenings on my couch, glass of wine in hand, talking about how lonely she felt. Mark offered her advice, support, even humor. I admired him for being kind to her. I never once questioned his intentions. Jade started showing up more. She joined us for dinner, without calling first. She texted Mark memes and articles he'd like. Once, I found them laughing over some inside joke I wasn't part of. Still, I said nothing. I trusted them both too much. Then came the night he didn't come home until 3. He said it was a work dinner. I was half asleep when he came in, but I remember the cologne and something else, guilt. He climbed into bed without touching me. His back turned to me in seconds. I stared at the ceiling, a knot forming in my stomach. The next morning, he was back to normal. Coffee in hand, kiss on the cheek, like nothing happened. I wanted to ask where he really was, but the words died in my throat. Doubt is loud, but fear of the answer is louder. I went back to baking cookies and ignoring the noise in my chest. A week later, I was folding laundry when his smartwatch buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower. The message was brief. A single line lit up on the screen. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. My hands froze. I stared at the words like they were written in fire. My first thought wasn't anger, it was disbelief. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it wasn't even meant for him. But the gut knows. It always knows. My mouth went dry. I picked up the watch, my thumb trembling as I tried to see more. But the screen locked. My breath hitched. I put it back exactly where I found it. He walked out of the shower moments later, towel around his waist, humming to himself. He didn't notice the way I looked at him differently. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. I forced a smile, asked him about his day. Played normal. Because I wasn't ready, not yet. That night I laid beside him, eyes wide open in the dark, my mind spinning. I remembered all the times he'd been late. All the times Jade had called him such a good listener. All the times I'd ignored my instincts because I didn't want to be paranoid. I'd been writing it off as stress, as coincidence, as life.
But now?
Now the truth sat beside me in bed, wearing the face of a man I thought I knew. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I stared at myself in the mirror longer than usual. My eyes were sunken, my expression hollow. I looked like a woman unraveling. And I hated it. I hated how easily I'd let myself become blind. I hated how I still made him coffee that morning, like nothing had changed. But something had.
Even if he didn't know it yet.
The day dragged. I tried to distract myself. Laundry, dishes, calls, errands, but that message echoed in my head like a siren. Last night was amazing. My imagination ran wild. Hotel rooms. Shared laughter. Her perfume on his skin. I hated myself for even picturing it. By afternoon, I'd convinced myself I needed more proof. One message wasn't enough. I needed certainty, not assumption. Because if I was going to let my marriage fall apart, it had to be for the truth, not suspicion. He came home that evening, kissed me on the cheek again. I smiled back. It felt like playing a role in someone else's movie. He joked about a meeting at work. I asked him how Jade was doing, casually, lightly. He said she seemed better. I watched his eyes, his mouth, every flicker of expression. And that night, as he snored beside me, I made a decision. I was going to find out everything. No more guessing. No more hoping. Because if there was one thing worse than knowing your husband cheated, it was knowing he thought you'd never find out. And I intended to prove him wrong. I started with his location history. Mark had no idea his phone automatically tracked his movements. It was all there, timestamps, addresses, everything. A hotel 2 cities over. A bar he'd never mentioned. Places he never had business being. And the dates? They matched every night. He came home late. Every work event that ran too long. Then I checked our credit card statements. Receipts for dinners he never mentioned. Jewelry I never received. One charge was for a spa package with a woman's name attached, Jade's. He wasn't even trying to hide it. That hurt more than anything. The ease of it. The disrespect. I needed more, so I went through our shared laptop. He'd forgotten to log out of his email. The messages were there.
Dozens of them.
Some tame, some graphic. Jade telling him she dreamed about him. Mark saying he missed her laugh, her body, her everything. Him promising he'd figure things out soon. I didn't cry. I just stared, letting the words slice through me, one by one. What gutted me wasn't just the affair. It was who he chose. My best friend. The woman who held my hand when I gave birth. Who toasted our anniversary with tears in her eyes. Who said I was like a sister. I reread a message where Jade said, "I feel bad for her, but I can't help how I feel." And Mark replied, "She'll get over it. She always does." They thought I was weak. Predictable. Someone who'd roll over and forgive like I had 100 times before, for smaller lies, forgotten promises, dismissive comments. This wasn't just cheating. It was betrayal layered in mockery. I recorded a phone call between them.
I had to hear it for myself.
I used an app called Jade pretending to ask about a recipe, then casually brought up Mark. She slipped, laughed nervously, said something about last time before realizing what she'd done. It confirmed everything. I listened to it again that night. Mark was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, probably texting her. And there I was, a few feet away, listening to my friend talk about how she couldn't wait to have him again. The level of audacity was surreal. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wasn't going to give him the chance to twist it. I wasn't ready to hear lies. I needed control, and silence was my weapon. He still thought I was clueless, still kissed my cheek in the mornings, still texted me midday with emojis and fake warmth. I responded with smiles and softness while I built my arsenal. I started acting a little colder, just enough to make him uncomfortable. He noticed. Asked if I was okay. I said I was just tired. He offered to take me out, said we needed us time. The irony made me sick. I declined, said I had a headache. Around this time, Jade became less present. She stopped showing up as often. I figured maybe she was nervous. Maybe Mark warned her I was getting suspicious. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. I saw every interaction between them in a new light. Every memory tainted. Every smile laced with betrayal. I kept up appearances. Posted happy photos. Played the doting wife. Took the kids to the park, baked cookies, laughed at the dinner table. All while documenting every detail. I took screenshots, copied messages, saved voicemails. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing to win. Part of me hoped he'd confess. That guilt would eat at him, and he'd come clean. But guilt requires conscience, and he had none left. One night, he came home with flowers. Said he'd been thinking of me. I thanked him, placed them in a vase, then threw them away after he went to sleep. I thought about telling my parents, but I didn't want the pity. I thought about confronting Jade, but I knew she'd just spin it. I told no one. Not yet. I needed to stay quiet until I had everything in place. My breaking point came when our daughter asked me if Daddy and Annie Jade were going to the movies without us again. She said it so casually, like it was normal. Like this was just something that happened now. I smiled at her, said maybe next time, then went into the bathroom and sat on the floor, hands shaking. He didn't just cheat on me. He brought it into our home, into our children's lives. That night, I looked at him differently. Not with sadness, not with rage, but with clarity. He wasn't who I married. He wasn't even someone I respected. He was a liar playing house, a coward hiding behind charm. And he thought he'd never be caught because I loved him too much to see the truth. But I saw everything now. I stopped asking questions. Stopped waiting for explanations. I wasn't interested in his version of events. He forfeited the right to be heard when he chose deceit over honesty. I no longer needed his words, I had his actions. He kissed me goodnight again. I let him. Then I turned to the camera I'd hidden weeks ago, stared into the lens, and whispered what I now believed with every fiber of my being. I know. He had no idea what was coming. I started documenting everything like clockwork. Screenshots of messages, copies of call logs, timestamps, photos. I stored it all in a hidden drive, labeled under innocuous names he'd never think to check. Every move he made, every lie he told, I had it backed up. I wasn't planning to catch him. I already had. I was building the path to my freedom. I stopped reacting. No more passive-aggressive comments. No more cold shoulders. I smiled again, kissed him good morning, asked him about work. The more I pretended to believe him, the more careless he got. He thought I'd forgiven whatever suspicion I had. That's how much he underestimated me. That's how much he relied on the image of the woman who always chose peace over confrontation. I wasn't choosing peace anymore. I was choosing power. I started going to therapy. Not the couple's kind he used to ignore, but private, quiet mine. I unpacked everything. My guilt, my confusion, the years of shrinking myself to keep the marriage from breaking. I realized I'd been afraid of losing a man who already left. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually long before Jade. I told no one at first. I wanted the truth to sit with me, undisturbed, until I could look at it without shaking. That took time. But slowly I did. With therapy came clarity. I didn't just want to survive this. I wanted to grow from it. I started working out, not for revenge, but for me. I changed my hair, updated my wardrobe, not to attract anyone else, but to feel like myself again. The version of me I'd shelved under motherhood, under marriage, under his ego. At the gym, I met Daniel. Soft-spoken, kind eyes, the kind of man who listened without looking at his watch. Our first few conversations were short, polite. Then one day, we talked for over an hour. Nothing flirtatious, just real. It felt strange to be seen, truly seen, by someone after so long. I didn't tell him anything about Mark. I didn't need to. He wasn't part of my escape. He was part of my reminder that people still had goodness in them. I didn't cheat. I wasn't going to let my story mirror his. But I started to imagine life beyond Mark. Life where I laughed without pretending. Where I didn't have to lower my voice or walk on eggshells to keep someone else comfortable. I stopped begging to be noticed. I started watching who noticed me when I wasn't trying. Mark stayed oblivious. He still sent good morning texts. Still talked about work stress. Still acted like the man I married, but only when it benefited him. I realized then he never missed me. He missed the version of me that made his life easier. The dependable wife. The shield. The audience. I started keeping a journal. Not about him, but about my plans. I listed goals, get legal advice, update my finances, check custody laws, secure a new place to live. It wasn't emotional, it was tactical. I was preparing for war, without ever raising my voice. I contacted my cousin, a lawyer, and told her everything.
She didn't gasp.
She didn't pity me. She told me what to do next, what to collect, what to avoid, how to protect myself. That conversation changed everything. It moved me from survival to strategy. Every day I lived beside him, I was less his wife and more his shadow. He had no clue. He thought he was winning, that I was stuck, that I'd never leave because I hadn't yet. But my silence wasn't surrender. It was the silence before a door slammed shut forever. I started talking less to Jade. Ignored her messages. Unfollowed her slowly. She noticed. One day, she texted asking if I was okay. I replied with a single word. Fine. That was it. She didn't push. She knew something had shifted. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to know I wasn't playing anymore. Mark got more paranoid as my distance grew. He asked if something was wrong. I told him work was stressful, that the kids were wearing me down. He offered to help more. I nodded, thanked him, pretended his sudden kindness meant something. It didn't. I remembered the woman I used to be. The one who laughed too loud, danced in the kitchen, stayed up late to write stories. I mourned her for a while. Then I started writing again. I filled pages with anger, with hope, with clarity. I stopped asking why he did it. I stopped wondering what I lacked. He cheated because he wanted to, because he thought he could, because consequences only exist when someone chooses not to look away. I wasn't looking away anymore. One night, he came home late again. He smelled like her. I didn't flinch. I looked him in the eyes and said, "You smell different." He froze, eyes flickering. I smiled and walked away. That was the moment I knew he felt it, that chill of not knowing how much I knew, how far I'd gone, how close I was to walking away without a word. He begged for consistency,
For peace.
he didn't know he was begging someone who had already left him in every way but name. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. I wanted dignity. I wanted him to live in the mess he made without the comfort of my forgiveness. And I wanted him to realize it too late. I remember sitting in bed that night, staring at the man who used to be my home. He looked peaceful, content, as if he'd fooled the world and gotten away with everything. I whispered to myself, they begged him to never stop and he didn't. But now it was my turn not to stop. And I wouldn't. The morning I left, there were no dramatic exits, no screaming, no broken plates. Just silence. A silence I orchestrated with precision. I'd already moved money into a separate account. I'd signed a lease on a small townhouse near the kids' school. I arranged for them to stay with my sister for a few days while I made the transition clean. No disruptions. No chaos. Just control. Mark was at work when I filed for divorce. I'd already served him in absentia. The documents were scheduled to arrive that afternoon. I didn't wait around to see his reaction. I didn't care. There was nothing left to say. His explanations were meaningless. His guilt was recycled. I had no appetite for apologies written by men who never thought they'd be caught. I changed my number the same day. Left a note on the kitchen counter with a single sentence. You lost more than you'll ever admit. I didn't need to elaborate. He knew what he did. And if he didn't, then it only confirmed how far gone he really was. The next few days were quiet. No calls, no confrontations. Just a series of missed connections I intentionally avoided. He texted from different numbers. Short messages. Some angry. Some desperate. Some pathetic. I didn't answer a single one. He didn't deserve my words anymore. Then Jade reached out. A long, bloated message about how sorry she was, how complicated everything had become, how she never meant to hurt me. She said she missed our friendship, that she hoped one day I'd understand. I read every word and felt nothing. She wanted forgiveness without consequence, closure without accountability. I blocked her. I focused on rebuilding. I enrolled the kids in therapy. I adjusted to the new schedule. I cried exactly once, late at night, not because I missed him, but because I grieved the life I thought I had. It wasn't about Mark. It was about the illusion. And once it shattered, all that was left was truth. I thrived in that truth. I started writing again, publicly this time. Stories about resilience, betrayal, healing. I posted anonymously, but the reach grew. Women messaged me, thanking me for giving voice to what they couldn't say out loud. I didn't tell them it was my story. I didn't need credit. I just needed to turn pain into something that mattered. Mark showed up once, unannounced. He looked thinner, like someone who hadn't slept. He asked to talk. I met him outside, arms crossed, no expression. He said he missed the kids. I reminded him of the visitation schedule. He tried to pivot, said he missed us. I didn't flinch. I told him there was no us. There hadn't been for a long time. He asked if I ever thought about fixing things. I asked if he ever thought about not breaking them in the first place. He stood there, stunned, like it had just hit him that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't going to forgive him this time. He said Jade meant nothing. I told him that didn't make it better. It made it worse. You don't destroy your family over something that means nothing. That's not love. That's cowardice. He left with nothing but silence. That was the last time I saw him in person. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. They didn't ask too many questions. I kept it honest, but gentle. Mommy and Daddy are better apart. They accepted it. Kids understand more than we give them credit for. They knew something was broken long before I admitted it. I kept writing. I kept healing. Some days were heavy, but most were light. I learned to enjoy my own company again. I made new friends. I explored parts of myself I had forgotten. I even smiled genuinely deeply, like someone who wasn't pretending anymore. One day, an editor reached out about publishing my writing as a book. Said it could help more people. I agreed. I turned my story into chapters, my pain into prose. I didn't name names. I didn't need revenge. I just wanted people to know they weren't alone. That surviving betrayal doesn't make you weak. It makes you invincible. Mark still tried occasionally. Emails this time. Rambling messages about how much he's changed, how much he regrets. I skimmed the first few, then deleted the rest. I didn't block him. I didn't need to. His access didn't mean anything anymore. I wasn't angry. I was indifferent. And that's what scared him the most. Indifference is the final death of a relationship. Not rage. Not bitterness. Just emptiness where love used to live. Jade disappeared entirely. Probably moved on to someone else's husband. Or maybe she realized the thrill wasn't worth the consequence. Either way, I didn't care. I stopped wondering what they did, how long it lasted if they still talked. It was no longer my business. I was free. And freedom, I learned, wasn't loud. It was subtle. It was waking up without dread. Drinking coffee in peace. Listening to music without memories ruining it. Smiling at your kids knowing you gave them honesty over performance. One evening, I watched the sunset from my new porch, journal in hand. I thought about the phrase that started it all. We beg him to never stop, and he never stopped. That line haunted me for weeks. But now I saw it differently. It wasn't about him anymore.
It was about me.
Because now I was the one who refused to stop. Not in chasing pain, but in chasing healing. In living fully. In refusing to settle for anything less than respect. He never stopped hurting me. So I never stopped choosing myself. And I never will.